This is Representative Ron Stevens. He is a Republican in the Georgia State House of Representatives. When Representative Stevens' daughter was 5 months pregnant, doctors informed the family of just horrible news. Part of her baby's brain was developing outside the skull. The baby's heart was also inverted. The heart was upside down. If the pregnancy were carried to term, Mr. Stevens said his daughter was told the baby would take at most only 1 or 2 breaths. He said, quote, she would have watched it die. Because that fatal defect was detected by her doctors, Mr. Stevens' daughter was given the option of having an abortion. A bill was introduced in the Georgia House this year that would have banned abortion at 20 weeks, at the time just before Representative Stevens' daughter was given her diagnosis. Under the bill, a doctor performing an abortion after the new 20-week cutoff in Georgia could face 10 years in prison. That bill passed the Georgia House, largely along party lines. But Representative Stevens, although he is a pro-life Republican, he did not vote for it. He did not vote for the 20-week abortion ban. Because of his personal experience with this issue, he walked out of the House chamber during the roll call rather than vote for this new ban that would have taken away his own daughter's ability to have decided in her case, and would have had the state government instead step in to force his daughter to go all the way through 9 months of pregnancy and the birth of the child that they knew would die immediately upon birth. Mr. Stevens talked to the Savannah Morning News about his decision not to vote for the bill. He told the paper, quote, for something this cruel to happen to my daughter or anyone's daughter is just plain inhuman. I consider myself pro-life, but this provision was a distortion of pro-life values. But even though it did not have the support of that pro-life Republican Representative Ron Stevens, the new 20-week abortion ban did pass the Georgia House. Then it went to the Senate in Georgia, where it got an amendment. It was amended to add an exemption, and the exemption would allow abortions past the new 20-week cutoff in the case of a medically futile pregnancy, a case like Representative Stevens' daughter's case, where a fatal defect was discovered. Once that exemption was added into the law in the Senate, Representative Stevens decided he could vote for it. He could vote for the 20-week ban. Again, he is a pro-life Republican, and he voted for the final bill once it got that exemption added to it. But because of his initial reservations, based on what had happened to his daughter, Representative Stevens is now being denounced as a Republican in name only, as a rhino. He has been promised that he's now going to get a Republican primary challenger from a group calling itself the Peach Tea Party. Peach as in Georgia peach. Tea Party as in Tea Party. Mr. Stevens is one of 17 lawmakers being targeted by this Tea Party group. One member of the Peach Tea Party coalition telling a Florida newspaper that their priority is banning or rolling back access to abortion, even in cases of rape or incest. They say that is at the top of their agenda. Quote, any candidate that is not right on the social issues disqualifies himself for public office. And so in this election year, with the Republican Party prioritizing abortion and contraception and social issues generally, we have seen the likely Republican presidential nominee, Mitt Romney, go from having the support of 44% of women under the age of 50, nearly half of them, to 30%. He's now down to less than a third of women under the age of 50 supporting him. Just a few weeks ago, Mitt Romney trailed President Obama by only a handful of points among women under 50. Now Mr. Obama is doubling him up in that group. This huge fall off among women voters has the President Obama, polling ahead of Mr. Romney for the first time in 12 swing states. But that national dynamic, that national falling away from the Republican Party of women voters, is a product not just of the presidential race, but of what's happening in the states. And in the states, here's how it's working out. The detail ends up being really important. Democrats are really fighting in the states against this raft of anti-abortion, anti-women's health, anti-contraception legislation. Fighting hard, not just by voting against this stuff, but by demonstrating, by fundraising, by running ads, by proposing that the same kinds of restrictions and humiliations that Republicans want to apply to women seeking abortion would also apply to men seeking Viagra. They've also walked out during legislative sessions, which Georgia Democratic women senators did a few weeks ago to protest Senate votes on anti-abortion and anti-contraception bills. And again last week when the Georgia Senate was passing the amended version of the 20-week abortion ban. But this time, Democratic women senators did not just walk out of the session. They staged their own protest, complete with props and slogans. They unfurled rolls of yellow caution tape. They walked out of the chamber. They started chanting loudly enough, according to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution's reporting, to be heard inside the chamber. Women will remember in November. They are outside the chamber at this point, but inside the chamber they could be heard loud and clear. That is what one side of this battle looks like in the states, with Democrats fighting these things. The other side of it, of course, is the Republican side. And on the Republican side, it's the Republican Party and the conservative movement locked in their passionate embrace. Lawmakers on the Republican side susceptible to the same hidebound, old-school Republican social conservative politics they have always been subjected to. After 3 years now of being told that the new face of Republican activism, this Tea Party movement, is all about small government and fiscal issues and putting the culture war behind us, the group calling itself the Tea Party movement in Georgia is primarying Representative Ron Stevens for his insufficient ideological purity on how thoroughly he would push to ban abortion. Joining us now is Jay Bookman. He's a columnist for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Jay, thanks very much for being here. It's nice to see you.
Thank you for the invitation.
This particular Tea Party group, this Peach Tea Party group, is a coalition of a bunch of different conservative groups, including Georgia Right to Life. Has the phrase Tea Party essentially just become a name you can freely attach to any conservative organization these days?
Yes, and I think that's exactly what happened in this case. Georgia Right to Life basically created the Peach Tea Party and just took the Tea Party name and attached it to social causes.
This Tea Party coalition is being really aggressive, specifically on the issue of abortion. I highlighted the case of that one Republican representative because it seems to me the fact that he voted ultimately yes on the bill, that the amendment that he sought didn't gut the bill in any way and came from a personal and pretty understandable place, to be against him and to be determined to primary him for that seems to be almost unusually doctrinaire. Is this something that I just don't understand about the way Georgia politics is played, or is this new for Georgia?
It's relatively new, but you may recall Karen Handel, who was with Komen for the Cure. Yeah. She ran for governor in Georgia 2 years ago as a Republican. She got defeated in the Republican primary because she was deemed to be insufficiently ardent about right-to-life issues. She supported exceptions for rape and incest. She supported in vitro fertilization, and those are, you can't be for those things in Georgia and get the endorsement of Georgia Right to Life. She lost the primary because of that.
Does that kind of litmus test, that kind of, I would say kind of purification politics, does it have an effect of making Georgia Republicans less competitive in general election contests? I'm thinking specifically about sort of suburban Atlanta, where that representative I was talking about is from, and some other areas of the state which may not be pure red, from which these Republican representatives are coming from. Is that litmus test hurting them, or has it not yet done that?
I don't believe it will hurt them. Redistricting is making sure that those districts the red districts are very red. So I don't think it's going to hurt them. I also don't believe, however, that the Peach Tea Party is going to be very successful in its efforts to oust these people. I think there's enough of a recognition within the Georgia Republican Party that this really is extremism, that it's not where they want to go. You saw that in the Georgia Senate, which stopped the bill in its initial form. 13 Republican senators stood up and voted against it, despite being told that they would be primaried. I think that took some political courage for them, but I also think they understood it's important for their party to make that kind of stance.
The internal dynamics between the conservative movement and the Republican Party are the greatest show on earth when it comes to American politics. Jay Bookman, columnist for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Jay, thanks very much for being with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. 5-4 in hockey means both goalies are having a rough night. On the Supreme Court, 5-4 can mean that we are all having a rough generation of politics. More on that just ahead.